This postseason, Donovan Mitchell and Jamal Murray had one of the greatest head-to-head duels in playoff history, as they both recorded multiple 50-point games throughout the duration of the series, with the end resulting in the Utah Jazz blowing a 3-1 lead to the Denver Nuggets. But in this video, we're not going to spend time talking about the team per se. We're going to talk about the individual stars of that series, and that is Jamal Murray and Donovan Mitchell. To be specific, as you can tell from the title, who is the better player? And for those who do not know how I do my versus videos, I start off by talking about one player, and then I talk about the other, and at the end I give my explanation about why I believe player A or player B is better than vice versa. But before I get started with my opinions on that though, I would like to give a shout out to the Overtime podcast. For those who don't know, I'm not going to waste too much time. It's a pod I do with my friends Darius, J Smooth, and Bino. We did a Q&A as well as ranked the top 10 point guards in the league on the last episode. Make sure you check that out. There are clips on another channel. Cards should be popping up on the screen right about now, and follow our Twitter page as well as my own, by the way. All the links for them will be in the description box down below. But without further ado, enough of all the plugs. Let's start talking about the first player, and that is Donovan Mitchell. It seems as if ever since he's arrived in the league, Donovan Mitchell has been a top 20 to 25 player at the bare minimum. And though he's never made the finals, or hell, even made the conference finals, he still has some playoff moments that show he can be a legit number one on a contending team in the Western Conference. Let's not forget that in the first 2 years with Utah, he had the responsibility to carry the load offensively as the number one option, and he more than held his own and even superseded expectations, especially in his rookie season. And time after time after time, despite not having the greatest offensive weapons around him, he was still able to consistently lead them to back-to-back 50-win seasons. And this year, the Utah Jazz sacrificed some on the defensive end, departing from players like Ricky Rubio and Derek Favors and picking up Mike Conley, Jordan Clarkson, and Bojan Bogdanovic. And despite not having Bojan in the first round, D-Mitch put the team on his back, averaging 36 points, 5 assists, and 5 rebounds, as well as a steal, shooting 53% from the field, 52% from 3 on over 9 attempts a game, and shot nearly 95% from the free throw line. And I definitely don't think these numbers are going to hold up throughout the rest of his career or anything, and you could even argue not having fans and being in that bubble atmosphere contributed to that as well. But you still can't take credit for what he accomplished in that series because everybody is playing on an equal playing field. You can't praise LeBron for what he did in the finals and then not guys like Donovan Mitchell and Jamal Murray and say, hey, they're only doing this because it's the bubble. You can't have double standards. And in the case of Donovan Mitchell, it's not a stretch to say that he can be a 25 to 26 point per game scorer, and hell, maybe even average 28 on some given seasons. He's already averaged 24 points per game this past year, and with more opportunities presented towards him, I don't see how he can't be a 25 point per game scorer. It's literally one more point. And as far as his efficiency goes, he just had his best shooting year this past season. But not only as a scorer is he contributing to the Utah Jazz, but as a playmaker, he has definitely shown strides. And as a defender, he could definitely improve, but he is no liability, and I wouldn't even say he's below average. I consider him an average defender, but considering that they did part ways with Ricky Rubio, he does need to step it up on that side of the ball because now more responsibility is going to be placed on his shoulders. But like I said earlier, he's still capable on that end. I don't consider him a liability. And considering the names that he's beaten in the postseason, such as Paul George and Russell Westbrook, I would say that the playoffs are made for guys like Donovan Mitchell, and considering that the Jazz could trade Rudy Gobert because it's obvious that he's peaked and Donovan Mitchell is the future, they could definitely surround him with some supporting pieces to make them stronger contenders in an ever-growing Western Conference. But I cannot talk about how great Donovan Mitchell is and not acknowledge the negative, because even in that series against the Denver Nuggets, many people forget that Donovan Mitchell did have a very shaky Game 7. shooting below 42% from the field, going 9 of 22 from the field to be specific. He also recorded 9 turnovers, and outside of the third quarter in which he had 16 points, I gotta give him credit for that, he didn't really play all that particularly well. It even blows me away that people don't bring up the fact that Donovan Mitchell didn't even hustle on the last play, in which Mike Conley missed the shot, and everybody gets on him for that because he didn't pass it to D. Mitch as if he had time to do so before the game clock would have expired. D. Mitch is the one that laid on the floor after being stripped. He turned the ball over and didn't hustle back to play defense. If he had done that, maybe he could have gotten the ball instead of Mike Conley and had the game end on his terms, but he didn't do so, and he had to live with the results. Because as a volume scorer, D. Mitch does have a tendency to shoot inefficient in big moments or in just situations as a whole, because every now and then it seems like volume scorers are gonna take bad shots, and he's not Steph Curry, so he's gonna miss a lot of those bad shots and have some inefficient games. And we saw it even last year against the Houston Rockets in the playoffs, in which, yeah, he didn't play well whatsoever. So as far as the weaknesses in Donovan Mitchell's game, it has to be his shot selection. His defense is kind of just what it is because of his size, and as far as his offensive game, there's definitely room for him to improve, but he's been showing improvement as a playmaker, so I definitely think those things will come in due time. But I think I've talked about D. Mitch enough. Let's now transition into our next player, and that is the Blue Arrow himself, Jamal Murray. Coming into the league, I was a huge Jamal Murray fan. For those who do not know, I'm a huge Kentucky fan, so I root for my guys coming out of college. And when he went to the Denver Nuggets, I actually thought that was a perfect landing spot for him alongside Gary Harris in the backcourt. And after his rookie season, which was a little bit underwhelming due to an injury, he's been a solid 16 to 18 point per game scorer, but outside of his scoring ability, I questioned his value. As a playmaker, he paled in comparison to his counterparts. On the defensive end, there was definitely room for improvement, and even as far as his scoring ability, he was very inconsistent, and it showed in the playoffs last year, especially in games 6 and 7 versus the Portland Trail Blazers last year in the second round. But this postseason, it looks like Jamal Murray wanted to make me look like an idiot because he completely proved me wrong. As a playmaker, he definitely showed growth as he made the right reads out of traps and double teams, not just against the Clippers, but even in some moments against the Los Angeles Lakers. Similar to Donovan Mitchell, he had multiple 50-point outings in their first round matchup, but in the second round, he continued his works, as though he did have some struggling moments here or there. I mean, when you throw Kawhi, Paul George, Patrick Beverley, a whole bunch of bodies at him, but he was still able to get his buckets, step up in big moments, hit big shots, and concluded the series with a 40-piece, shooting 58% from the field and 46% from behind the arc, knocking down 6 of his 13 three-point attempts. The sheer killer will that Jamal Murray showed this postseason was unlike anything that I have ever seen. This guy in the clutch shot 55.6% from the field and 73% from behind the arc. And even on the defensive end, he's no Tony Allen, but he's definitely improved from being the liability that he used to be in previous seasons, or at least damn near, because his defense used to be atrocious back in the day. And to be quite fair with you, when it comes to his weaknesses, there really isn't one. There really is just a question, and that is if Jamal Murray can keep up this level of consistency. Because the biggest question with Jamal Murray that made people, including myself, doubt the Denver Nuggets' chances of being legit championship contenders in the Western Conference was Jamal Murray's inconsistencies time after time. And yes, Jamal Murray is young, but Nikola Jokic is a big man. And not only are bigs more prone to injuries than anybody else, but their prime is usually around those first 7 to 8 years of their career. And Nikola Jokic is in it right now, so the Denver Nuggets do not have time to waste as far as building a championship roster around Nikola Jokic, and Jamal Murray should be that sidekick. And based off of what I saw this postseason, he clearly has the capabilities to be able to do so. And if he can obtain a high level of play over the next couple of years, sustain it for some time, he'll be able to cement himself as one of the better guards in the league. But now that I have addressed both players' strengths, weaknesses, their greatest accomplishments, and their biggest failures, let's now address the elephant in the room. The reason that you clicked on this video, to see who I believe is the better player, Donovan Mitchell or Jamal Murray. And to that, my answer is Donovan Mitchell. Because don't get me wrong, Jamal Murray had a great and historic playoff run this year, incredibly clutch. You guys heard all the numbers earlier about what he was able to accomplish this year's playoffs. But you have to analyze numbers in proper context. Nikola Jokic is better than anybody on that Utah Jazz team, and that includes Donovan Mitchell. And when you have the privilege to play off of a guy like Nikola Jokic, I definitely think it should be taken into consideration just how good your numbers actually are. And considering that Jamal Murray, I hate to say this, was very inconsistent before this playoff series, and this bubble may be gone when we next return for the NBA season, yeah, it's very hard for me to put him over a guy who's shown that he can get it done in both environments, with and without fans. Let's not forget, as a rookie, what Donovan Mitchell did to the Oklahoma City Thunder. But I guess the next year, Dame just put the nail in the coffin. But I don't want to get too much off topic. My point still remains, Donovan Mitchell is the better player between him and Jamal Murray, due to not having the responsibility that Jamal Murray has and still putting up comparable numbers that supersede Jamal Murray's own numbers. And he also didn't even have Bojan Bogdanovic, who was their second option that was a 20-point per game scorer. And the fact that the series still went to 7 games without him is definitely telling. So one last time, my pick for who's the better player, it's Donovan Mitchell. He's better than Jamal Murray, at least as of now, because things can change and players can definitely get better, and I fully expect these two to do so. But that concludes this video, you guys. Let me know your opinions down below in the comment section, as well as hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel, and if you enjoy what you see, hit the bell for post notifications. Follow me on social media. My links are down below in the description box, as well as the links for my articles. Make sure you check those out as well in the description box. Y'all stay safe and have a great day. This is your boy Young Mustard signing out. Peace.